We do have different tasks of who is doing what, but we are always coming together and working together on where we're going. Like, what is the common vision, the common goal?
Welcome to Love Stories, a relationship podcast for successful women, where we talk about love, dating, relationships, and how great love stories are made. Whether you're searching for the one, you're madly in love, or simply curious about romantic relationships, this podcast is for you. I'm Charlene Byars. Each week, you'll hear from women, couples, and experts, and all the ins and outs on how to create your own love story. I am so passionate about this subject, and I'm so excited to share all the things that you can apply to create a beautiful love story of your own. Cheers to great love. Welcome back to the Love Stories podcast. I'm your host, Charlene Byars. Well, hello, welcome back. Okay, I cannot express enough how important what I'm about to talk to you about is. This has been on my heart this week, and this is so important. Ladies, no matter what, really follow your gut, your intuition. When something doesn't feel right, that's tapping into your feminine energy. Because I want to tell you what happened this week. I was at the gym and I was talking to a friend of mine. She's not a client, she's just a friend. And she recently has decided to move in with her boyfriend. And this is the deal. She's moving in with her boyfriend and she has 2 dogs and he has 2 dogs. And there was this altercation, I guess, this week with their dogs, or something happened recently. And now her boyfriend is adamant that she needs to get rid of one of her dogs. But the crazy part about the story is she is crazy about her dogs, and that is not sitting well with her. But she also made the decision that she's going to go forward and get rid of one of her dogs because she thinks that's the right thing to do, even though her gut is telling her, no, 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 no. Okay. This is why it is so important to follow your gut and pay attention to how you are feeling, because you should never have to do something that doesn't feel right, and especially for a man. If something doesn't feel right, don't compromise and stay firm with what is right for you. Don't ever feel that you have to go against what's in your heart to please a man. It actually needs to be the other way. If a man is into you, he will go above and beyond to protect your heart. Always remember that. Let's talk about the tip of the week, which is it's a man's job to pursue and a woman's job to set the pace. Ladies, in the world of dating, you don't need to pursue the guy. You don't need to plan the dates. You don't need to make the arrangements. All you need to do is get to know who he is over time and learn how to enjoy chivalry and a man who's pursuing you. That's the beauty of the art of the dance. A man who's in his masculine and is emotionally available will ask you out on a date, take care of things, and move the dating dynamic forward. All you need to do is relax, let go of control, enjoy yourself, and have fun. Remember, you are the prize, and ultimately, you choose who you want to date and who you decide to commit to. I am so excited to welcome my guest, Jill Leonard, to the show today. Jill and her husband, Michael, work full-time in their marketing business together. They are college sweethearts, met by chance in class, and have been together for almost 13 years and married for 8. They realized that they wanted to spend all their time together, so instead of taking a honeymoon, they decided to start their first business. Fast forward to 2021, and Jill was full-time in their business and was making enough for Michael to leave his job as well. It has always been their dream to work together and spend all their time together, and they finally did. One of the things that really stood out to me in this interview is how Jill really followed her gut and had high standards to who she wanted to marry. And she credits that to the close relationship that she has with her father. So no further ado, Jill Leonard. Well, hello. Hi, Jill. Oh my goodness. I am so excited. I have been really looking forward to talking to you today. First of all, thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Thank you. I'm so excited. I'm so excited because I know that, the story that we're going to get to hear about your love story today and your success is going to be so relatable to so many of us women. And today I was like, okay, I have so many questions for you, but I was thinking about this. I want to start from the beginning. And I want to know, what was Jill like, when you grew up? What was your life like when you grew up, when you were a little girl? Did you grow up with your mom and dad? Did you have brothers and sisters? Was it like a really nice upbringing, or was not so much, was not so much? Let's start there, Jill. How about that?
Ooh,
I want to start there.
I'm excited. I did not expect that. So I'm excited. Well, so I'm from Northern California. I grew up in about an hour away from Tahoe. So I got to grow up in the mountains, in the forest. My parents owned a 9-acre parcel of land, surrounded by other forests. So I lived in a forest. So it was
You lived in a forest?
I did, yes, right outside of Tahoe. So I know it was a very unique childhood because I got to just be in the forest, away from cities and all of that. I'm the middle of 3 girls. My parents are still together. It's really easy for me to remember when their anniversary is because it's my same age. So I believe that they are coming up on 36 years married, which is just
no way,
insane, but still together, and they're doing great. But I've always been very creative. And when I was younger, I would say that I was very in touch with my emotions, but I didn't really know how to utilize them. So that was something that I definitely dealt with growing up. I was definitely dealt with mean girls growing up. But as far as my childhood and my family, I wouldn't change anything because there was so much love there. There was so much respect there, and just had a really unique, positive experience growing up. And a couple years ago, my dad told me that his mother was talking to him about all 3 of us and how we were all different and unique in our different ways. And one of the things that he told me was that my grandma, who is long past, she said that Jill has a huge capacity to love. And I was so grateful that he gave me that because she could see that in me since I was a really little girl. So I always had very big emotions, very big feelings. And I honestly, for my whole life, I dreamed of having a husband. I'm not even going to pretend like I didn't. I always dreamed of having a husband. That was
the next question. This is
number one.
Yeah, that was good. You're saying go in there because I was just about to ask you 2 things. Thank you for saying that because I was just about to ask you. I said, so when you grew up, first of all, were you homeschooled or did you go to school? Because if you guys lived in this big forest, what was that like for you?
I went to a public school, but it was very small. It was K through 8th grade, 100 kids, insanely small. So I was with the same people from kindergarten all the way to 8th grade. High school, it got bigger and it was better, but it was definitely an isolated experience for sure.
Okay, so that was the next question I was going to say. Okay, so then you went to figuring out you lived in this, what would you call it? I lived in
in the mountains. I lived in Northern California.
In the mountains, yeah. I lived in Northern California. So how was it for you, Mama, when you were growing up and you were starting to like boys, and you just said that you always kind of dreamed about, being having a husband and all the things. But how was it for you being in a small town and really kind of feeling boys? And when did you start actually having a boyfriend and dating? And what was that like for you?
It was definitely difficult because you're with the same people. And I think when you're in that small of a community, you can be labeled as certain things. I was the girl that was just friends with everybody. I was a little bit awkward growing up. So I don't think I got my first boyfriend until maybe 6th grade, I want to say. And then and then so 12 maybe. And then my first serious boyfriend was in high school for sure. But I definitely felt like I had That's such an interesting question to ask because I don't usually reflect a lot. I'm the kind of person that just is always focusing forward. So I love that you're making me reflect.
And you know what? Take your time. Think about that, because this, to me, this will say a lot about like your journey and where you are today and how it came about. So that I love to hear the history. I love to hear the history.
Yeah. Well, I think I will say in terms of choosing my partner, I've always been a daddy's girl. Like my dad is my best friend. We're very similar. I worked with him for a long time and he's extremely chivalrous. And I had always been looking for a man that had similar characteristics to my dad, because I'm such a daddy's girl, and I still am. But, so whenever I would develop these big crushes and sometimes they wouldn't go anywhere. And I'm thankful that when I was younger, I was able to move on fast and, let it go. And I definitely brought a lot of love to my relationships, but if they weren't, I never wanted to settle, and not in a way where it was like, oh, I'm better than you or whatever. But if we didn't have the same goals, like my high school boyfriend didn't graduate from high school. And that was a huge, big deal for me to graduate from high school and to go to college. And he wasn't on that path. And then I ended it because I was like, we're not going in the same direction. So I'm very glad that at a very young age, I knew what I wanted. And that was someone who had the same drive as me to be successful and to do something big with my life, but then also had a huge capacity for love, like wanted that deep romantic, love that I had always dreamed about.
Yeah. Jill, that's actually pretty awesome because, really, when we think about it, like a lot of us when we were younger, we don't even think about that kind of stuff. We don't even think about, like, we just kind of get, for the majority of the people, we just go get into relationships, not even thinking about, gosh, is this guy really compatible with me? Like, is this someone that I actually want to do life with a long term? And do you think that actually came from, the relationship you had with your father?
I think
like how
so.
you viewed relationships, how you viewed men, because you had that already so early on. And that's really powerful that you had that already, that thought.
Yeah. And I think what's so special is like I saw my dad work so insanely hard for our family. Like I said, I'm the middle of 3 girls and he worked so that my mom could stay home. And that was like such a blessing to have her raising us until high school, essentially, is when she went back to work. But I saw what she gave in raising us, and becoming, being a really great mom, being there for us and just doing whatever she could. And then seeing my dad like take on odd jobs, working full time, like working so much to support the family, to give my mom that dream, because that was her dream, was to stay home with her kids and to raise them. So I think it was the conjunction of both of them working together toward, wanting each other to be happy in that sense. And now later in their life, my dad has been able to step away a little bit and now they're in that spot. So yeah, I would definitely say, yeah.
So you already knew. You're like, Mama, I already know that if I'm going to be in a relationship, there's certain things that I want. Okay, so then fast forward. So let's talk about then how you actually met your man. Because before you met your husband, were you in any long-term relationships now that you were older? Like what age were you when you met him?
Yeah, well, so just to tell you the story, I have to go back a little bit. So when I graduated yes, because of my dad and my family, I had very high standards. I knew exactly what I wanted and I had high standards. But then I got the chance to go to college and I knew, because high school was hard for me. I dealt with a lot of mean girls. I just didn't know how to fit in, and I had friends, but they were all older. So high school, I will say, was difficult, and I don't reflect on it a lot because I'm just like, I try to remember the good times because there were a lot of good times. But college, I really saw, because I went away to Chico State, which is like 3 hours away. And to me, it was like a big city because I was like, oh my gosh, I'm in the city. Like there's
I'm not in the woods anymore. Yeah. You're like, oh my gosh.
And I really saw it as my chance to not just reinvent myself, but to really be who I visualized myself as being. Because I feel like when you're in a tiny high school, you're like labeled as one thing, and it's hard to break out of that. So when I got to college, I was like, I'm going to do what I feel like is my most authentic self. And I really saw it as my time to like really step into my own power, into my independence, and to just go for the life that I wanted.
I love that.
Yeah. And college was an amazing time. I look back on college years with so much love because it was such a fun time of self-discovery and becoming an adult and like this independent woman.
Meeting new people, learning, the whole thing.
Just my brain expanding. So yeah, it was amazing. I was in a long-term relationship with someone before I met my husband, which did end with cheating and infidelity, which was difficult. But I feel like it made me finally see, like, through that relationship, there were so many red flags. And there were so many times that I tried to break up and I didn't. So I do think that it helped me.
What was it? Hold on, let me ask you something. Let me ask you before you tell me. How long are you with this guy? The one that
2.5 years, I think, or 2 years. I don't quite remember. I think it was about 2 years and change, I think. So it was a long time.
Okay. So you're with, so you have a boyfriend. And at first I'm thinking that things are pretty cool, right? You're like, things are pretty cool. And then soon after that, when do you, now you can look back on it. Soon after that, when do you think like you're like, oh, something's kind of off? Like when you're saying the red flags, did you start noticing things pretty quickly or did it take a while?
It took a while. I think it was like maybe a year started seeing some things. And
that must have been hard.
Yeah. And, I look back on that younger version of me and I see that like, I just wanted to find my husband so bad. And I did have limiting beliefs at the time thinking that, I'm not going to find anyone else. Like I'm too old to start something new. And it wasn't until, things escalated the way it did that I was like, enough, like, this is done. This has run its course. And I don't harbor like any ill feelings now. And I definitely felt like it was a time to take my power back. Anytime you leave, man or woman, you leave a relationship with anyone that where it's not been fulfilling or right for you, you definitely feel like a sense of power coming back. And then I call that time before. And what's crazy is I met my husband 6 months later, but during that time was like
what happened during that time?
Oh man. It was a time of just self-discovery, like rediscovering like my feminine power and surrounding myself with all my girlfriends. I was in so many different clubs with so many different women. So I really
kept busy. You were involved at the time. You're like, okay, I'm breaking up with this guy, but I'm going to move on. I'm going to just like totally do something different. I'm not going to sit home and cry and just, pout.
Yeah. And it really was because it really was like, I was so busy during this time, but it was such a blessing because it helped me just be surrounded by so many women that just really loved and cared about me. I danced in college. I was in a couple dance clubs. So I had like shows and rehearsals. I did. And then I went to Vegas for the first time and it was with like 7 other girls. And it was just a wild summer of just like
girlfriend. I can imagine how that was for you because you were just telling me you went from how you grew up. Oh my God, this is good. So how you grew up and then you got, you're in college and you're kind of figuring out, then you have this relationship with this guy and like, okay, this is not working out. And then now you have this opportunity to like, kind of like get out there.
Yeah.
Oh my God, how was Vegas for the first time?
Oh man, it was such an experience because I was like 22 and I was with like 7 other girls and it was just like wild. Like, I don't know how we all paid for it. I don't know how we all afforded it.
You just made it happen, right?
We just made it happen.
And
And there was just like some crazy stories. I just can't even, it was so fun. It just felt like a time to just like let that feminine power, because I feel like sometimes that feminine energy and that feminine power can be diminished when you're hurt or when you're trying to pursue something and it doesn't work out. Like when you close yourself off and you're hurt, you're almost like blocking yourself from your own feminine power. And so when I finally was like, okay, and my friends were always like, you need to break up with him, you need to dump him. And I was just like holding on and, ended the way it did. And it was just my time to finally take my power back. And then like that feminine version of me just like exploded into this new life of abundance and who I wanted to be. And then I met my husband after this totally
You met your
epic
husband.
summer. Yeah.
Okay, I really want to hear this. What do you think it was like? I just want you to think back a little bit for a moment too. What do you think it was that helped you? And do you think it was just you, or what helped you actually go from being in a relationship that you're like, I would say would be toxic because if things were red flags and things weren't good, to take you from that mindset, that energy? What was it for you that actually made you make the shift? Was it just a moment for you? Was it, like, what was it, Mama? Like, I really want to know.
It was a moment. It was a moment of clarity. And, one thing I really love about my dad and my parents and my family from both sides is we're all big on like kindness and our values. Like that's something that was instilled to us when we were really little. Being kind and doing the right thing. Like my dad's a Gemini, but he has a lot of Libra, like in the rising or whatever the other things. There's a lot of like people who have sub of Libra. So everybody's all about like right and wrong, doing what's right. And, what I believed in. And he said some things about other people that I completely, went against my values. And it was the time when I was really good friends with his roommate. He was a really nice guy. I knew his girlfriend, like we were all really close and really nice. And I was just hanging out with him one day and he was like, "What are you doing? Like, why are you with a guy like that?" And he was like, "I would never, I can't," he was like, "I can't see you with somebody like that forever." And after that, I just had a moment of clarity because I was like, I can't keep making excuses and stay like, this is not what I envisioned. Like when this is not it. And then, that night I did tell him like, I broke it off. I was like, this isn't working. I don't love you anymore. And we're going in opposite directions and too much has happened. And it was like the most insane moment of clarity, but it was like coming from somebody who like I respected, who is a good friend of mine, and it wasn't, because sometimes when your girlfriends tell you, you're like, oh, whatever, but
yes. There was something different this time for you.
Yeah.
I could tell.
There was something in the way that he was like, yeah, it was more of a curiosity and it was more of like an afterthought. He was like, I don't know how you could be with somebody like that. And in that instance, I was like, oh my gosh, you're so right. I don't know why I am here. And it was like the biggest moment of clarity. And I was just like, okay, yeah, it's time to move on. Like, I'd rather start something completely new and fresh than stay where I am right now. Like the fear of staying was bigger than the fear of not starting something fresh for myself. And
thank you for saying this. And I want to pause here for a second. I really want our listeners to hear this because I think for the majority of us, there's moments in our lives that, like we can actually feel it, like something's off. And what happens is often we ignore that feeling. Jill, you know that, like a lot of people ignore that feeling. So there was something very powerful, very empowering that you did not ignore that anymore, that you actually stepped through that, because there's so many women that are now probably listening to this and resonating with this, that they also find themselves in a relationship that is not serving them, that is toxic. And if they allow themselves to just take that moment and feel, they're going to feel in their body. I feel like that's what happened to you, that something is off. And when you feel that something's off, it means that something's off. So good for you, Mama. That's very powerful moment. And I just want people to hear that. I want you to hear that. Trust your gut. Trust yourself. And especially if you have people in your lives, like you had that guy in your life that really saw it for what it was. And there was that moment. Thank you for him too. That was the perfect timing for him to be able to say that to you at that time. And not only for you to be able to receive it and be like, what am I doing? What am I doing? Because look what's going to happen. Look what we're going to hear now, because you went from that right? You went from that. And then 6 months later, let's talk about how you met your man.
Yeah,
okay?
I met my
you're
husband.
like in Vegas. You're like six, everything's, you're like, okay,
I call
I'm
it my
free
man.
woman.
I call
I'm
it my man eater days.
Yeah, you're like, I'm just doing all my thing. I have my man. I'm like living it up. Okay,
yeah.
and then what happens? How do we meet this one?
And I'm so glad that we shared that. I didn't give you all the details of this story until now. Like in the pre-interview, you were like, don't tell me. Yes. I want to know.
Don't tell me. I want to know. I want to know about your story, and I want to know about you. Yes.
So that summer, so the previous relationship ended in April. And then that summer, I was still in college. And that summer was like my self-discovery, my party time. It was great. Wasn't really seeing anyone serious, like seeing guys here and there, but more focusing on me. I was like, this is my time, my period. I don't want to talk to or deal with anybody else right now. This is my time to be selfish and, just focus on me. So school started and I took a class that was, a requirement of mine. And I saw my husband, Michael. He was like 2 seats down from me. So there was me here, a gal next to me, and then him. And there was kind of a big group where we would all chat and just, whatever before class, we'd all have fun and just chat during class, after class, whatever. And I remember looking over and...
do you think he's cute?
Yes. No, at the time I thought he was cute. He had like kind of longer, shaggier hair. He kind of looked like it was a little Justin Bieber. He's a drummer and he was in a band. So it was kind of shaggy. And I remember seeing him and I was like, oh, he's cute. But every time I would try to talk to him, the girl next to me, I think she liked him too. She would be like, oh, what's that? Oh, it's that. So I felt a little blocked. I felt
like, damn, girl.
I know. I'm like, so then I kind of gave up and I was just like, okay. I was like, well, he's cute, but I kind of gave up. And I had been like talking to like one guy and then it fizzled. And then I was talking to another guy and it fizzled. And one day my roommate was in my room with me, who is one of my best friends, was a bridesmaid in our wedding. And I was so mad because I think another guy was just being like flaky or whatever. And I threw my hands up in the air and I was like, and I was like, God, universe, or whatever, like you bring me my husband when I'm ready. I am done looking. You decide whenever I'm ready, you can bring him to me. Because I am done with all of these boys. I'm done with these boys. So then I go to class and Michael gets there early because usually he would get there late. He got there early and he had just shaved his head. And he walked in. And when I remember him, I always tell him this. When I think back and I remember, it was like there was a gold light behind him. And
oh my God,
that's how I remember him. And and he came around the corner. I think I had gotten there first. I was taking something up to my professor and he came around the corner and I saw him with his shaved head and I was like, hello. And he was like, hi.
Hello,
and I was like,
Michael.
Did you cut your hair? And he was like, yeah, I did. And I was like, well, it looks really good. And then he went and sat next to me and he took that girl's spot. He came in and took that girl's spot so that he could sit next to me.
Oh, I really like him. Oh, yes. Goodness, this is really sexy.
Yes. So we talked the whole time through the class. We talked the whole time. And then I asked him if he wanted to go to the library and study. Which nobody freak out. We did study, but we did do a lot of talking. And I remember when I said that to the universe and I told my friend, I was like, I'm done with these guys. Like, I'm not dating. Like, they're all so stupid. I'm done. So I'm sitting with Michael in the library and he's looking at me and we're talking and I'm like, who is this? And I was so intrigued. And then he asked me out and I went home to my roommate and I was like, I think I met someone. And she was like, what? No way. And I told her and I was like, he asked me out on a date. And I was like, but I just said that I'm not dating anymore. And she was like, no, you have to go. You have to go, and convinced me to go on my first date with him. And that's 13 years ago coming this October.
That's 13 years ago.
Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
Mama.
So that's how we met.
What was it about you? But what was it about your husband? What was it about this man? Because when we talked earlier, when we started this, conversation, you said ever since you were a little girl, you always had, this view of being married. And then as you got older, you really knew that you wanted to have somebody that you can have like real compatibility with, someone that had that ambition like you, like a real alignment. So is that what happened immediately with him? Like you just were like, who is this guy? Like, what's going on? Was he just completely in alignment with you, or is it something that grew over time?
Well, I'd say the initial attraction was, I thought he was so handsome. Like, he's tall, dark, and handsome. And I was like, good job, universe. Like, thank you very much.
You're like, thank you very much.
Sending you a bottle of wine. So there was that initial like physical attraction, but I felt so much whenever we would talk, he had this like amazing deep eye contact. And I felt so much love from him. I felt so much kindness from him. And we were like right away. We were right away, like very attracted to each other. We dated for about a month before we made it official, said, I love you a couple months later. But, I just was really attracted to, yes, that he was very driven. He was putting himself through college. He had to do it the long way. He put himself first through junior college. Then he went to Chico State and was putting himself through college. He was like a student. He walked and biked to school, and he worked. He was just extremely, I could tell that he was ambitious and he was driven. But then he just loved so much. Like he was someone that I had never experienced someone who genuinely wanted to take care of me. I felt like growing up, I was always like the one who was taking care of everybody else. And
right. Cause you're the three sisters.
Yes.
And you kind of taking, yep,
yes.
I got it.
And I would say it was probably like 6 months of us dating. Because I was dancing for my school. I was dancing
That's right. You're
at
dancing.
a studio. So I was doing a lot, and and I got injured, and I injured my ribs, and he had me come over and he took care of me. He was like, you're going to lay here. We're going to ice you. He made me food. He helped me change my bandage, or rewrap my ace, and just so selfless. And that was the moment that I knew that I wanted to marry him right when we got together. But that moment when he was just taking care of me, I was like, this is my person. Like, this is the man that I have been looking for.
This is what you look for. And you know what? Again, thank you for saying that, because what's so important about you saying this right now is that it actually comes down to, right? Like it actually comes down to how someone treats you. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of times people can say anything they want to say, right? You get in these relationships and men can promise you the world, and they can say I'm this and they can say I'm that. But I'm always like, you know what? Don't go by what someone says. Actually go by how they treat you. So he really was matching I got to meet him. He was really matching, seriously. He was already matching not just what he was saying to you, but his actions towards you. Mm-hmm. And I tell women, I said, listen, when you're thinking about looking for, your life partner, right? Looking for the love of your life, or being with the love of your life, being with someone that you want to marry. Don't you feel that it's the feeling, how they're showing up, how you feel with him? Because it sounds like to me that you felt very safe with him,
mm-hmm.
very connected with him. I mean, can you speak a little bit upon that? It was his actual actions, because it doesn't sound like this man was just a talker.
Oh, no. He always followed through on, any kind of promises he made. But yeah, safe is the best way to describe it. And I will say, not only feeling safe and loved and cared for, but I feel like he's the first person that I felt safe enough to really show my full self to. Like, there's no barrier. There's no filter. There's no barrier. And it's always been like that. And I always felt so safe that I was like, I can be, as goofy or silly or whatever, as I want. because I felt no judgment from him. And for years, I always felt like I kind of had a little bit of a guard up around my family. I've learned to drop that. And, just around people, just, for self-preservation or whatever. But with him, he was that first domino that I was like, whoa, I could really be my full authentic self and really just be me without any fear of judgment whatsoever. So that was when I knew that this was something special.
That's when you knew. Yeah. And that came from like you said, like we were talking about the way that he was with you, his authenticity, his, I say this again all the time. If you allow yourself just to just accept what you're getting, you're going to know what it really is, right? Because if we try to if we try to not allow ourselves to trust and be vulnerable, then we're not going to know what it is that is in front of us. And a lot of times it seems like that's exactly what you did. You also played a part in not only that he was showing up and he was presenting to you, but you had to trust him too. Mm-hmm. You had to be vulnerable. You had to okay, I've never had this before, but I'm just going to go for it. I'm really going to step into this, because it sounds like to me, when we talk about energies and stuff, it does sound like to me that you were able to really, really be in your feminine energy with him.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, 100%.
Oh, that's fantastic, Mama.
Yeah.
So you're dating this guy. So you're falling in love. So what happens? So how long are we dating? No, seriously, how long are we dating? How did we go from being in college, dating? We're kind of young. We're falling in love. Because, where you guys are now is just fascinating to me. And we're going to get there. Just guys, everyone, hold on. But how did you go from you're dating the guy, everything's great. How long were we dating, and how long until we got married? Tell me that journey.
So, yeah, I mean, anybody who's gone through college and then is kind of had to start from scratch knows, right out of college, I was working 4 part-time jobs. We had one terrible car and in a tiny apartment. And it was just, we were all about building our life together. And we've always been like that. It's always, even before we got married, it was what are our goals? Where are we going? What are we doing together? So we were together for, I believe it was 4 years before he proposed. And his proposal story is really cute. He proposed to me on his birthday, which is February 23rd. And I thought that he was going to propose on Valentine's Day. I had a feeling, but there was a bunch of stuff that went down. He couldn't do it during Valentine's Day, but he did it on his birthday. And we had a little party with his family and my family, and everybody met and everybody knew that he was proposing to me that night.
You didn't know? Obviously, you didn't know.
Obviously, I had no idea.
Obviously, you had no idea.
I had no idea.
Oh, my goodness. That was a surprise, because you're thinking we're doing birthday party. We're not thinking we're going to be doing an anniversary or getting engaged here.
No.
Oh, my goodness. No. How fantastic.
And what's sweet is we had just finally gotten a new car, and my mom was like, show this car to your brother and your sister. And because we have a good family friend who's was a foreign exchange student. He's basically a brother. We love him. And he was in town. He was in town too. And my mom was like, show everybody your car. And I just thought it was so weird. During that time, Michael asked for my dad's permission, which was insanely sweet. And he knew that was important to me. But what happened was a couple days earlier, we have a shared bank account, and I never check our bank ever. It's something I know I need to get better at. I happened to check it one day, and there's money missing. And I'm like, hey, did you take some money out? That was the deposit for my ring. And he was like, of course, she looks. So he made up some story.
Of all days.
He made up some story. And then we're on our way home. And he was like, oh, yeah, I decided to put that money back. And I know we were talking about getting engaged, but I feel like we should be further along financially. So, I'm thinking maybe 6 months to a year we can get engaged. And I'm just like, okay. And I was so sad.
Okay. Yeah.
And then we went back to our apartment, and he proposed to me in our living room. room, just us. And I was so surprised. I had no idea. And
oh my God, girlfriend, you probably were really taken back. That must have been really a shock for you.
It was. I ugly cried. I was so excited. And then when he told me that he asked for my dad's permission, I cried harder because that was always important to me because my dad is such a, a pivotal person in my life. I really wanted him to do that. Just out of respect for my dad too. But yeah, that's how he proposed. And then we got married a year later, and we just celebrated 8 years married this year.
8 years.
Yeah.
Yay!
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That was fantastic. Oh my goodness, that's fantastic. Well, what I think is interesting too is, first of all, what a love story. Mm-hmm. And how did you guys actually go from, your college, you are getting married, obviously you're working all these 4 jobs, we're trying to figure this out. At the time before you guys decided to go into business together, during that time in the beginning, were you thinking you guys were going to kind of do your own thing business-wise, or did you guys end up doing certain things? And then how did you guys come about? And so everyone who's thinking right now as I'm talking, she works with her husband, and they have a very successful business. And I want to know how this came about, because you just told me how you're in college, you're young, you're getting married, you're working all these jobs. What happened here, Mama? How did this happen?
It happened so organically because we've always been about each other, probably to an unhealthy amount, but we're best friends. We've always put each other as number one. Obviously we put our own self-care first, but then each other is that's our number one person. And we knew that from very early on. But then when we got engaged, as we were fast approaching our wedding day, we were both realizing that we were working and going in opposite directions. I was doing a 2-hour commute every day to my job. He was working on the weekends, and we both had very demanding jobs. They were great work environments, but they were just so physically and emotionally demanding, performing at very high levels. And we're fast approaching our wedding day.
How was that on the relationship?
It was hard
how was that on the relationship?
It was hard.
Were you guys struggling?
Not struggling in our relationship, but it was sad because we were spending our leftover time together. So it was always at night, and he rarely had weekends off. So it was a little bit of morning and then a little bit of evening. And it was rare that we would have a day off together. So it was hard, and it was just missing each other. So as we're about to get married, we both were okay, how can we spend more time together? Why don't we start a business? And we can work to, becoming self-employed so that we're together all the time, because that's always something that we wanted. We both saw okay, we're getting married because we want to spend all of our life together. But if we're going in opposite directions to support our life, that doesn't make any sense. So instead of going on a honeymoon, we invested in our very first business. And people thought we were crazy. They were why would you want to work with your husband?
What happened there? They thought, are you crazy, girlfriend? It's not going to work.
Oh my 100%.
Goodness. So people were, honestly, they're just projecting on you guys.
Oh, yeah.
So they had it was a negative thing. So there wasn't everyone really supporting you two about this.
Yeah, no, people supported when they were okay, you guys can do your own thing. I would never do that, but sure, you can do whatever you want. And we were so laser focused. We've always been so good about putting up blinders and just doing what was best for us and our family of him and I together and our unit, because we were very aware this is our life that we're creating, and we didn't care what anyone else thought. We were both
oh, I love that.
We don't care. We're just going to do. Of course, it's hard to hear, and it's hard when you're in the building stages and people might not support you or even understand. I think a lot of times is people just don't understand. They can't see the vision, but we could see the vision of being together full time and living life together. So we started our first business.
Can I just say something? Well, hold on. I want to say something real quick. That's really important that you're saying this. I want to say something about this. I love that you said that, because what I know to be true is when you leave your family, you grow up and you have a family and you leave your family. I always know, it's just from the bottom of my heart, is that That's the family that you came from, but that's not the family that you are building. And the family that you are building is the one that you get to decide what you want to do for the holidays, how you want to work, how you don't want to work, if you want to have kids, if you don't want to have kids. And a lot of people don't get this part. And really what's so important when you get married is that you guys actually, as a couple, do you, and then everyone else will adjust. And if, and it's not like when you have this family prior, doesn't mean that you can't love your family, you don't respect your family. But it's so powerful, and I really want women to hear this. It's so powerful to understand what you decide to do with your husband and what you guys decide to do is fine. And that's what's important. And you don't need outside, you don't need outside input. And and I love that you guys were such a young couple, a little spicy little couple. You guys were such a young couple, but seriously, this is really cool. Like you had this view of like, okay, whatever. And I'm not saying that probably was not hard too, right? Like that was not hard too. But the pure fact that you guys did not listen to people. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. So you go and you're like, no, we're going to do this. So what happens? So we're doing this. We're going to build this business together.
We decided.
How hard was that?
Oh, it was hard. Oh my gosh. It is such a whole other level. And I know, because I know that you work with your husband as well. It is such a, it's like an elite level of marriage, I think, because not only are you going from this being like your partner, your lover, your best friend, now they're a business partner. And that was definitely a tricky transition because we had to learn. And so, we've been in business together now 8 years together. So for as long as we've been married.
Yes.
Because marriage, let's throw a wrench in it of business as well. But you know what? I think it's really brought us closer together. And of course, there were difficult times where communication was like just being, missed. It felt like we were going like this a lot of the time and just missing and not understanding each other. And we just had to figure out, well, one, we had a common goal and a common vision together, because that was one thing that we always saw in like our friends or portrayed in society is like, yeah, you're married, but she's got her things over here and he's got his things over here. And they have different career
goals.
Like
this, right? Yes. And they're separating like this. The people keep going different parts. Yes.
Yeah.
So you guys are like, no, we're going in.
Exactly. So of course we had to deal with our own challenges of like how to work functionally in business together and, how to fight fair, how to, have both opinions be respected, because business is tough, alone, but then you have two people who have completely different, skill sets, mindsets, personalities. It was definitely quite the journey. And we still are, working on things and coming up with,
figuring out
new obstacles as we are in business together. And I know this sounds cliche, but we just had to talk about it all the time. We had to always be talking about it, always looking for solutions, figuring out action plans after maybe an argument. So for example, we would get in an argument and it would be about something like business, like some sort of creative aspect. And then somebody would throw in marriage stuff, and then it would become this big ball of mess.
And you're like, this is, how you do that? Like, so you're like, oh no, now we're like too much. Yeah.
We really tried to set that boundary of if we're having a disagreement or a discussion about business, it remains about business. We don't bring in marriage or relationship things, and vice versa. We try to keep them separate as much as possible.
That's wonderful.
The other thing that's been helpful is we do have different tasks of who is doing what, but we are always coming together and working together on where we're going. Like, what is the common vision, the common goal? And I mean, you could even say this if you're not in business together. What is the common vision of your relationship? Where do you want your lives to be in 1, 5, 10, 20 years? Because I think a lot of couples don't think about that. And it's hard I think a lot of couples also don't think about, it's not just me anymore. It's us. It's what's best for us. And I see a lot of couples where one party will be more selfish than the other or not willing to compromise. And I think that's what makes a functioning marriage is like, you do have to hear the other person's opinion, and their feelings are valid. Like their feelings and their opinions are 100% valid. I definitely came
Absolutely.
from, my mother is like insanely independent and very strong willed. But I think for me, I was like too aggressive and strong willed. And I had to learn that
And you had to
compromise is
kind of,
okay.
yes, compromise is okay. Do you think then, I mean, in general, I mean, it depends on the couple. Do you feel that like now that you've been doing this for 8 years, I mean, is it something that you would do all over again? Or is it something that you're like, you know what, I don't recommend? Or you feel like, no, it's been a great experience, even though it's been a hard experience?
So I will say for me personally, 100% I would do it over again. 100%. We went through some really tough times too, of just like financial uncertainty, with like job stability, and going out on your own and starting your own business is insanely difficult. And when we started the Market Vibe, which is our business now, the one that our marketing
Right.
agency that we're growing now.
Yeah. Tell everyone what you do. Just give us a
Oh,
little brief understand. Yeah. So tell us what you do so they kind of know how you guys are working together and what kind of business you
yeah.
have.
So we own a full service digital marketing agency called the Market Vibe. We really specialize in social media management, Facebook ads, website design, and branding. But we also do like email marketing and blog writing. So all of the digital things for, marketing a business online. That's my background. I'd been doing that since right out of college. I like right when e-commerce was booming. I worked at Lulu's, which was really cool. But we got to a point, we had started our first business, which was just like a little screen printed t-shirt business, because I knew how to run an e-commerce brand. But like the logistics of really trying to have a real like manufactured brand is you have to have so much capital. And we were just like, this isn't the direction. So then we decided, you know what, let's go into marketing. I've been doing social media forever. I was at the time, I was a general manager of a screen printing shop. But before then I was a head of marketing for a really big construction e-commerce brand in Northern California. So we started that in July 4th, 2019. And then I changed careers into a very toxic work environment, and they let me go. And it was a shock. I was, and anybody who's been let go or fired, you go through so many feelings of like not good enough, imposter syndrome. And I was so grateful that Michael was like, don't go back to work. You just focus on our business and let's run. And we started working, and then he was able to step away from his job in June 2021. So we've been full time together for 2 years, which is just, it feels like longer. But to say, I mean, we went through so many times of just like second guessing and struggling. I personally would do it all over again for the life that we have now, for the vision. Like the vision is like so much bigger than and better than I could have even imagined. I would do it
Oh,
all over
wow. That's
again.
awesome.
But I understand that there are people out there in the world who cannot work together, and that is okay. That's 100% okay. My parents, for example, are so funny. My dad has his own business, and my mom is now retired, but she was working with him for a while, and they just didn't mesh. And my dad claims, "Well, I fired your mother," and then my mom's like, "No, I quit." So. So some couples, it
Oh, I
just does
love it.
not work. And that is okay. Like, that's totally
Right.
okay.
That's okay.
Yeah. I think it's just important to have some sort of a common vision for your life together, and to be making sure that both parties are feeling heard in that vision, and that you're both contributing to that vision.
I agree with you. Thank you. I agree with that, because I think if we're not working together, because not everybody's going to work together, and your guys' story has been successful working together and all that, and Mark and I, we do pretty well together too. Yes, and we've been through all the stuff too, girlfriend. We've been through all the stuff, but I really feel that it is still always trying to find something that we are doing together, a vision together, a goal together, instead of individually doing their own thing. And so that's so important. What do you think? How is life for you and your man now, Mama? And what are where are you guys going after this? Because it seems that your business it seems like it's thriving, it's doing well, and I'm sure you guys have bigger goals. But how are you guys doing overall? I mean, how are things right now?
Right now, really good. I mean, it's funny because like you just never know with business. And I will say at the top of the year, it was definitely a more difficult year because everybody was freaking out about the recession and, things like that. And a lot of times in business, the first thing that people pull is their marketing budget if they're trying to save any kind of money. So it was definitely a difficult year, which anytime there's any kind of difficulty in business, of course, it puts like strain on us, but we just have to lean on each other and just, work that much smarter and harder, but mostly smarter, to keep going towards our goals. But we've hit a point where now we're thinking about the next level. And, I think we're looking now at real estate and we're looking at, maybe investing in some properties. So that it's really exciting. It's right now, it's just like the research period and getting everything logistically filled out or figured out. But yeah, we love what we do. We love like working with other business owners and entrepreneurs because we know that feeling of, putting yourself out there and starting something new. And sometimes you just need somebody to help you get visible online so that you can actually start making real sales and real income. But for us, the marketing agency is great. And I think it's a stepping stone to an even bigger vision for us, which is, to be traveling the world together and to be, experiencing more of life together in this second phase of life where we're not, having to grind every single day. Now we've got a great team and a really good process with our agency. And we like everything is just firing so well on all cylinders that now we can kind of really look at the next step. I will say too, like we don't have any children and we don't have any pets. And people also, no, we don't. People think we're crazy. We delayed gratification for a really long time before we moved into this house because we were just like, let's pay off all of our debt. Let's pay off all of our student loans. Let's get like good cash flow. And we moved here to Utah a year ago, but we were in a tiny 1-bedroom apartment for 5 years. And then before that, we were in another tiny 1-bedroom apartment. So now, and like we had always said, like, oh, when we get to this split where we are right now, we'll get a dog, or maybe we'll think about having kids. And like, as far as the kid portion, we tried, but it never happened. And I'm always very candid because I know that there's probably a lot of women out there who feel the way I do. We tried, it didn't happen. And we were both like, I knew in my heart, fertility treatments I did not want to go into. I just knew like my body would be thrown out of whack and I didn't want to go down that path. And he kind of had the same realization. He was like, I really love our life the way it is. Sure, would it be amazing to have a little me and a little you? Absolutely. But honestly, at the same time, our business was kind of our baby. Like
I feel like you have a baby already.
Yeah.
Your baby's a business.
When we weren't able to get pregnant, we were building our business. And so then we just threw ourselves into that. And then we were like, you know what, if it happens, great. If it doesn't, I'm not going to feel less fulfilled because I don't have a child. So that's been, the focus for us. And now we're at a place where we're like, yeah, I don't think that's not in our future. And then as far as like having a pet, like we delayed for so long and now we're in this like beautiful house and we finally upgraded all of our furniture and we're like, that's going to get ruined. So we just we just really value our freedom. And we worked so hard to get to this point that, we can travel whenever we want and we don't want to be tied down in that aspect just quite yet. That's kind of the vision for us.
That makes total sense. Yeah. And what I love is that everyone's different. That's what I was talking about. Like when you get in a relationship and when you're with your person, whatever you two decide to do, however you decide to live your life, it's actually fine. There's no right or wrong, right? There's no right or wrong. Everyone has a different thing. So I was going to say this. I mean, wow, look, we already been on for like an hour. I mean, I honestly feel like I've just been talking to you for 10 minutes and I'm like, I have so much more to talk to you about. Wow, I love this. But I want to say, I know I have to wrap it up. I don't like this wrapping it up thing, but I have to wrap it up. Okay, fine. I'm the worst because I just get into these great conversations.
You are the host. Fine. It is your show, so you can do whatever you want.
It's my show, so we can say as long as we want on. Wow. So for people that are listening right now, because the majority of are really wanting to hear about women's journeys and their love stories. And a lot of women right now, they are in positions, Jill, that, they maybe already been married before. Some haven't been married before, but they're having a hard time even believing that there's good men out there and that it's possible for them. And can you just talk a little bit on that? Like how, you also went through a stage for a moment there that thinking, oh, I'm not into men. But talk a little bit about it, give them hope, because look at your story and how you've been able to really let go, find your person, have hope, and build this life with your man. And how wonderful that is. And I want other people to know it's available for all of us. So maybe you can just speak a little bit on that before we go.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a coincidence that Michael came into my life when I decided to let go of control. And I just decided, I was like, I am not looking. He's going to come to me whenever I'm ready, or, whatever your faith is, that is going to send him to me when I'm ready. And I stopped looking, and lo and behold, he showed up. And I think you shouldn't put too much pressure on yourself, because, I found him when I was at my peak of thriving in that moment. I was just thriving, probably my fullest self, in a while. And I think that's what attracted him to me as well, is that I was living this moment for myself, and, we came into each other's paths at the perfect time. And I know that I have heard so many people talk about, the culture of dating now, and just how accessible it is for men to find tons of different women and to not be faithful. But I really do believe that there are great men out there with great values. I think you just have to, at least for me, one, it's almost like a dance. You have to almost trust yourself and be open, be vulnerable. But then at the same time, have high standards. For me, it was always for me personally, I knew that whoever I married, it was going to be one and done. I don't want to entertain divorce. So I wanted to be picky in the sense that I knew exactly what I wanted in a partner and what I was looking for, and I didn't settle. And even though it was difficult to leave relationships that weren't fulfilling me in that aspect, I did it anyway, because I was like, life is too short to think that there isn't somebody else out there in the world, because there's 7 billion people in the world, maybe more now. So there's so many different people that you can connect with, and I think it starts with you living your most authentic life and doing life for you and seeing who you meet along the way, and to be open to those, people who are coming into your life, but to not drop your standards for having the fear of that you're never going to find anyone else, because you will find someone else.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. That is fantastic. Oh, thank you for saying that. I think it really is looking inwards. And when you concentrate on yourself and you really know what it is you're looking for and what you want and your standards and your values, then you're not going to settle. Right? You're not going to settle. It's going to happen, and you just let go. Oh, thank you for saying that, Mama. Yeah. Thank you so much. Okay, so if anybody just they need to get a hold of you, they want to follow you, how can they find you, hon?
Well, me and Michael are that gross couple who do everything together. So pretty much on all social media, but on Instagram specifically, our handle is Michael and Jill. You can find us over there, but we're over there on Instagram, and love to connect with anybody. But I would just say anybody who's still looking, just, know that there is somebody out there for you. There's probably multiple people who you could really connect with, and to let it happen organically. That's one thing that I'm so glad, it happened organically for Michael and I, and I'm so glad that it did. And just to, live your best self, go out there and be yourself and just live for you, and you will find your person along the way.
Oh, I love that. Oh, that's fantastic. Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much for being on. This was a great, great story. I'm like, I still wanted more, but that's okay. I think we got the gist of it.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That was fantastic. Thank you. That's a wrap. What a beautiful love story Jill and Michael have. It truly matters who you pick from the beginning. That makes all the difference. Choosing a person you have true alignment with and share values and goals is the ingredient for a long and lasting relationship. If you're loving this podcast and these incredible conversations, please hit the subscribe button and leave a 5-star review. Don't miss an episode, because each week I'll be bringing on guests and experts who will share their knowledge about love, dating, and relationships so you can apply it into your own life. I'll see you next week. Until then, cheers to great love.